He wears many hats as the Chief of Staff in the Office of the President of Kenya, the head of the Presidential Delivery Unit, and is also an advocate, but that does not stop him from pursuing his enthusiasm for motorsports, where he manages them all with finesse, with His Excellency's support.
The President is extremely encouraging. I think for him the bigger vision was to get the event back. And he's lent his support even when time has been extremely tight. Honorable Amina Mohammed and I managed to convince him to come to Soisambu during the ARC event in between two official functions, and he managed to stop by and have a look. And I think that gave all the volunteers, because this is a sport that relies so heavily on volunteers, all those marshals and young boys and girls out in the field, providing for our safety and event certainty. I think we're all very motivated to see the President there. And you can be sure you'll see him in the WRC.
And it is that support that saw President Uhuru Kenyatta make sure the government did all it could to ensure the Safari Rally was reinstated back in the World Rally Championship calendar.
I remember a meeting held probably 2017 with the FIA president, with the KMSF officials and the president, and he said, look, tell me what you want to make sure we bring this event back. And from then on, I took a very keen interest working with successive cabinet secretaries for sports, working with Phineas Kimathi and his team, just trying to help them to deal with anything that could assist them to get the government to meet its obligations with respect to the WRC promoters' requirements. And then the idea came that we will do the candidate event. So our car had been sitting in the workshop for 4 years, and we decided to dust it off, an Evo 9, and we made a try in the candidate event. It was fantastic. As far as rallying would go, all the disasters that could happen happened, but it was a good way to get back into the sport, and more so importantly, to be part and parcel of a candidate event that was successful and that brought the WRC back home.
Nzioka Waita is not only happy that their determination bore fruit, but that it will be competing in the championship as well.
Kenya is the sports capital of Africa, whether it is athletics, whether it is racing and other sports. And we have perhaps one of the most unique biodiversity in the world. Now, to be able to mix a high-octane sport with perhaps one of the most beautiful countries on the planet is a mix that everybody wanted to see come back. I mean, I remember sitting on the rocks in the hills in Oltepesi, watching Ian Duncan come on 3 wheels in a Toyota Celica in the dust, and the helicopter moving behind him and pushing giraffes and buffaloes into the area. And you can only get that in Kenya. You can only get that in Kenya. And I believe even those who remember from the WRC what the safari used to be like are still very much nostalgic about it.
His interest in motorsports was encouraged by his later beloved father, who worked tirelessly to ensure the drivers got the much-needed sponsorship.
For me, it's been a long journey. I started my interest in the safari in the early 90s. My late father was one of the big sponsors. He was one of the directors at Caltex Petroleum. So he was a big sponsor to the whole rally circuit. And specifically, he sponsored Patrick Njiru, and they sponsored, in the later 90s, Jonathan Toroitich. And I found my way into the service crew of Jonathan Toroitich as a guy who carries the water bottles, the spare tires, and just the errand boy in that rally setup. And I got to see the WRC up close and very personal, even getting to meet guys like Didier Oriol and others. And I knew at one point in my life that I would want to be taking part in the WRC. So 25 years later, here we are.
The later Ben Mushemi played a big role too to ensure he got the much needed support when he saw his enthusiasm.
Well, I can't play golf. I've tried and I'm horrible at it. So motorsports is what has called to me from a very young age. And when I got the opportunity, when I was introduced to rallying by the late Ben Mushemi, I never looked back. He had a media event and he sponsored a media rally, and I took part in it then when I was at Safaricom as one of the co-sponsors of the event. And I did quite well. And he said, look, you seem to have some aptitude for this. Why don't you try and take up 1 or 2 rallies and see what you feel? And that's what brought the interest. I really do wish I could spend a bit more time finessing my skill, but it is what it is.
He joined the Kenya National Rally Championship, where he translated what he'd been learning all along into results.
My safari in 2014 in an Evo 6, we were in the top 10 going into the penultimate stage, which was a stage called Paranai, and then we damaged our exhaust and our speed then got capped to about 100 kph. We couldn't move any faster than that. So we ended up coming number 14 in that event. The next year we did what was for me one of the most exciting safaris, which was the first leg was in Machakos at Lisa Farm, and then the subsequent legs were in Loldaiga in the hills, and then the last leg was in Meru and Kibiritia coming into Timau and Lewa. And we were again lying in, I think we were 12th in the last stage of the event, and we went through Lewa, which was the penultimate stage, and then we got into the last stage between Lewa and Meru showground, and the drizzle came down, and the terrain changed very quickly and became very slippery, and we knocked our front, we slid into a culvert and bent our arm beyond repair. So we had to bow out with less than 6 kilometers to go to the end of that safari. So I was really heartbroken. And we had a fantastic car, an N12, really with an excellent service crew from here. And we had a service crew joined with Don Smith, who was co-sponsoring us in that event. And it was heartbreaking to know that you're 6 kilometers from the end of the rally, and it would for sure have been for us a top 10 finish. We've had a couple of finishes. My best finish, I think, was Safari in 2014. I think we had a number 14 finish, and then of course in the ARC rally, when all things were counted and the numbers settled in, we came in at 10, and 10 for us is a milestone, considering the penalties we picked up because of doing the Super Rally. We hope, I mean, my job does not allow me too much time to rally, but it is my desire to keep close to the sport and where possible, challenge where we can. But I really would prefer to see younger, more energetic young Kenyans coming into the sport, and we'll try and do what we can to encourage them.
Nzioka Waita took part in the Equator Rally when it made its comeback to the Africa Rally Championship to finish a 10th overall, navigated by the skilled Tuta Miyonki in their Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 10 R4.
The dress rehearsal was phenomenal. We had a trouble-free run. The only challenge we had on the Saturday was we had a throttle control unit that failed in the last stage of the day in Soisambu. So we were time barred for that stage, and we had to then rejoin in the Super Rally. And everything went fantastically smooth in the Super Rally. We had a flat tire. We had a major flat. We came out on 3 tires in Malewa on the second day, but thankfully we didn't notice until we were out of the stage, and we had plenty of time to change it. But other than that, it was trouble-free. We had a phenomenal time, and we're really looking forward to those stages. Wary about the weather. We're a bit wary. We are hoping it's very hot and very dusty. That's our desire. My navigator and I, we love the heat, and we can do very well in the heat and the dust. If it rains, then we will iterate our plan. I'm sitting with Tuta now for the second event. We've taken a lot of time to get to know one another in the rally seat in terms of style and attention to detail. And Tuta is a lot more seasoned than I am in the rally space. She's got a lot more events under her belt, and I felt that would be a good mix to temper my enthusiasm with somebody who could calm us down and make sure we get to the end of the event. But more importantly, someone with attention to detail and ability to really get us to perform at maximum capacity.
He will be using the same car for the WRC Safari Rally, where he looks forward to another good result.
We love it. I think we can't ask for more. There's a mix of speed, which favors some of the cars. The longer, more flat-out stages allow for the 10s, which are very quick on the road. The 10s can also take a slightly more beating than the R5s. So they are more of an endurance vehicle in this event, not so much on the speed side. The R5s, of course, have an understated advantage in terms of the shorter and more technical stages because of their power and their maneuverability and just their size and their compact nature. But the event is primarily about the people. The ability of the driver and the navigator to get through the event safely and to preserve the car right through to the end. And we want to do the power stage. Our aim is to do the wolf stage. That's what we want, and we'll give it our all. Everything else, I can't promise that we'll go flat out, but we want the wolf stage and we want to finish it strong.
He has the route organizers for coming up with such an elaborate route that will showcase Kenya's diversity while testing the driver's skills and navigators as well.
First of all, I just have to take my hat off to the team that has designed the route, because they've managed to get a good mix of technically very difficult stages. The Malewa stage is like rallying inside a quarry. But once it rains, it's like swimming in a mud bath. So it changes so quickly. The stages like Loldia are so tight. The trees are very close. No room for mistakes. You make a mistake, you can't get your car out of that thicket. Then you go to Elementaita, where the volcanic rocks will probably even out the rally if people don't take them seriously. You have Soisambu, which has a lot of hidden nooks and crannies in the riverbeds, which has taken its fair share of casualties in this event and in prior events. And then you have Kedong, which on the face of it looks like a very nice open stage, but the sand is very tricky, and we are waiting to see the impact that the WRC frontrunners will have on the terrain. But all I can say is that the route is fantastic. They've done a great job of compacting the event into a very condensed area within Nakuru and Naivasha.
Nzioka Waita will not only be flying the urban extreme Kenya Mbele flag, but the nation's as well, and calls on all Kenyans to support this important initiative.
Kenya Mbele, we are sponsored by a company called Urban Extreme, which you can see runs all this racket behind me. We want to finish the event. We have our own class. We want to be very competitive in our class. So if anyone is asking whether we are going to try and take on the WRC guys, I can tell you that's not on the cards. We don't dwell in fiction. I think our interest is really to do as best as we can in the Group N, the R4 category, and we did set some pretty quick times in the ARC, and we hope now that we're sort of in a better mental space in terms of the limits of the car. I think we hope we'll set some very competitive times, and as I said, if we get to the Wolf stage, we will give it our everything. Come and support Kenya, number one. Make sure that we look good, because this event, we should have it for the foreseeable future. It is very important that we represent our country well, that we welcome our guests well, and that we encourage our drivers, you know, our top 10 drivers, to be in the top 10. I'm quite confident that our leading drivers in the KNRC are going to cause an upset. And we want to encourage our local fans to really support our drivers to achieve the maximum positions that they can get, but more so to put on a show that guarantees that the WRC remains in Kenya. If you see what it has already done to Naivasha, every hotel from Kijabe to Nakuru is booked. That is what we need. And particularly now, coming out of a very difficult period of lockdowns and economic stress, it's a good boost to that part of the country. And people need to see events like this, motorsports, beyond just being sports, but being economic activity that really carries everybody with it. And I'm really looking forward to that week.